Fox News. Chicago Tribune warns New York to avoid socialist mayoral candidate after mistake Brandon Johnson. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. New York is having a Democratic primary, and this Zohran Mamdani is, I believe he's a Democratic socialist, yes?
Correct.
Yes. He's also, I don't want to speak out of turn, but my understanding is he's anti-Israel.
Very fair to say that.
Okay. Fair to say. Is it fair to? But would you characterize it more strongly than that, Elaad?
No, I think anti-Israel is fair. I think he. What's become a big deal in New York and around Israel specifically is that within many of the anti-Israel protests in the city, they chant to globalize the so-called Intifada.
Yeah.
Some people view that as a tepid call for violence against Jews. He came out in support, as I understand, of the phrase. He wouldn't condemn it, and I think he said something along the lines of there being like legitimate usage of the phrase, and it depends how you interpret it.
So, but before we get into all the nuances of what's going on in New York, the fact that this guy is now his polls are improving. The prediction markets have him heavily favored to win the primary. This is an example of the political motivation on the ground. Young people skew anti-Israel. We are seeing Pew has research that came out showing that among Democrats and Republicans 18 to 49 are now 50% anti-Israel, critical of Israel. Democrats are like
anti-Israel is very different. I mean, we're
well.
probably
Let me pull it up to
critical
make sure
of
I get
Israel.
it.
Like I think this is what I think. I think young people on the left have always hated Israel. And on the right, I think young people are sick of funding other countries, which is legitimate. Like I'm sick of. I think funding for Israel. It's kind of like
I think it's
real quick.
Really like ran its course. You know, like
they're not anti-Israel. They're socialists, and Israel is right-wing coded, and as a result, they hate Israel.
It's so just to clarify, negative, unfavorable view of Israel percent. And so in 2022, 18 to 49-year-olds were 35%. 2025, they're now 15%. That's Republicans. Among Democrats, 18 to 49 went 62 unfavorable to 71 unfavorable. So
yeah, but you don't think that when the war in Gaza ends, like that'll I mean, that's reflective.
No, I don't think so.
Of a very negative reality.
I think Israel has some of the piss poorest PR I've ever seen.
True,
China's got better PR.
China's pretty good PR.
It's pretty good. Look what they do with TikTok.
Exactly.
And they get who is it? James Charles or whatever that guy's name is, saying like, "Oh no, they're taking my TikTok from me, but Trump saved me." I'm like, they know how to run a psyop. It's funny because you got these people who think Israel controls the world, and I'm like,
for all the stereotypes about being sneaky Jews,
they can't seem to muster up any degree of support among young people. So right now, based on the split between Democrats and Republicans, the principal voting blocs in this country being that's just it. Majority negative. Half of Republican in 18 to 49 are negative. To be fair, 50 plus, a large voting bloc, are very positive. Only 23 are unfavorable. Democrats, 50 plus, are 66%. We're looking at a majority among all U.S. adults, 53% unfavorable view of Israel. This trend is growing. I don't think even when the war ends, that's going to change. And I'll give you a really good reason, TikTok being one of them. Mm-hmm. After October 7th, we went over this with Axios. We pulled up the Axios data 800 million times, so I'm not going to pull it up right now, but we saw that the content that was getting the most views, there was a small amount of posts talking about how Israel had been victimized that got a large amount of play. Pro-Palestine, small. A week later, it inverted 10x. Now, all of a sudden, anti-Israel were getting way more views, to like hundreds of thousands more, millions more, than pro-Israel sentiment, which was indicative of an algorithmic change, because it makes no sense that over a weekend it just flips. Now, this could be the result of TikTok internally saying, we want people to hate Israel and clicking a button, or it could be that Islamic Nation said to their cyber armies, we want 100 guys, each running 100 accounts each, going on TikTok and posting anti-Israel sentiment to force the algorithmic switch. Either way, within a week, the sentiment inverted. Israel's not done anything to combat this, and the sentiment is only getting worse. Prominent conservative personalities are getting millions of views when they're critical of Israel. And whether you want to call it legitimate or not does not matter. Young people, you see that video of the woman who gets pulled over for the DUI? The cop walks up to her and then she's drunk and she goes, well, she allegedly is drunk. And she goes, did you know there's a genocide in Palestine? And the cop's like, what? it's so wired into the minds of these young people because they're getting spam blasted with it that she blurts it out to a random cop at a stop. Israel does not have anything. Let me tell you, the people that I see on social media that are pro-Israel there's an overlap between the DeSantis people and them, and everyone finds them insufferable. Not literally every single person who's pro-Israel. Some of them totally fine. I'm friends with a lot of them. But a lot of these posts are just smarmy and snide. Meanwhile, I don't have to name anybody, you guys can, but there's a ton of prominent personalities on the conservative side who have recently come out as Israel is not doing us any favors, to Israel is secretly controlling this country and they're evil, and they're getting millions upon millions of views. Their subscriber bases are growing. They're making tons of money. I don't see a reason why that trend would change.
Well, it used to. This is another place where the far right and the far left converge, right, is on hating Israel. And also being pro-Jew and pro-Israel used to be a leftist position. And like other leftist positions, the left has totally abandoned it, along with, free speech and workers' rights and all kinds of other stuff.
How much of this do you think is a function of them hating Israel or downstream from the base of the Democrat Party becoming leftists? And as a result of Israel,
why are they becoming leftist?
That's where the base of the party is. Why? I mean, that's a good question. But as far as I don't think it's because of Israel that they're becoming leftists, though. And I think it's downstream.
No, but they're intertwined. So when you say the base of the party is leftist and they hate Israel, the function of what is causing that is the exact same thing.
Well, I guess I wanted to focus on the framework of why the left hates Israel. And I mentioned earlier it's because it's right-wing coded, but also because it's white coded. And the left does think... Wait, so if I could finish.
That's right.
The left views Israel as white oppressors oppressing brown people, and that's why they are trying to. That's why they try to have an affinity for black people. That's how they try to appeal to black people by saying, "Hey, look, you guys are oppressed by white people here." So, like,
I get all that. Get all that.
So that's why I think they resonate.
Correct. That makes no sense.
Which part isn't?
If you were actually to apply critical theory and you actually were trying to say that we're on the side of the oppressed, you'd be pro-Israel.
It depends on your narrative and framework. I mean, I don't disagree with you on principle.
The point.
But
if you were actually looking at, so the issue is these people who claim they're on the side of the oppressors are on the side of the second largest religion in the world, which has domination in the region surrounding one small nation, the only Jewish state on the planet, and they say the one small ethnic minority surrounded by 2 billion Muslims is the oppressor.
Oh, yeah, but that's because they think they're white.
I think Americans like to reject our politics.
The point is, they believe these things not because there's a logic behind them, but because they are told to believe them by psyops and PR campaigns and people. So here's what I genuinely think about a lot of the anti-Israel sentiment. They're bots. Not all of them.
From Pakistan, I mean.
Not all of them. But you know what I love? You know what I love? Okay, I've explained, this, I shouldn't even caveat this, the way bots work. Not all accounts are bots. You're allowed to not like Israel, but there are a lot of bots. There's a distinction here. When someone is running a bot campaign, these are limited, low-functioning AI auto poster bots. They can only respond in certain ways to certain things. What tends to happen is someone will say, we want... Let's just say pancakes and waffles. We'll isolate it. We want somebody who hates waffles to be spam blasted until they genuinely believe everybody likes pancakes. Why does the left believe they're on the right side of history? Because they open their social media app and they see a video of 1,000 protesters in the street, and it looks like this massive gathering. It looks like the whole world is watching, and it's 1,000 people in a city of 13 million. But in their minds, they can't comprehend that. So what the bots do is they'll see Elaad go on X and say, I had a waffle today. It was pretty good. And then they'll say, oh, man, we're the pancake company. Put his account, list it under pro waffle. Anytime he posts anything about breakfast, attack him and say he's a waffle shill, Shabos waffle, whatever. But here's the thing. A minute later, Elaad then posts, I actually don't like waffles at all. I think they're gross. But you know what? That waffle was okay. I'm going to stick to pancakes. The people who set up these campaigns don't realize there's nuance in his position, and he was only passively supporting it one time. From then on, every time Elaad posts waffles are bad, he gets attacked by people saying waffles are bad. And you're like, wait, hold on. So here's the real world example. I will post the U.S. should not be funding Israel. And what do I get? 300 responses saying, why are you supporting Israel? Well, hold on there a minute. That doesn't make sense. These people are not real. Their images are AI generated, are cartoon avatars, and I know they're fake and they're not a real person. It's not even a person typing the message. They'll say, aha, did Netanyahu decide? I swear to God, I'll say, I am sick of the U.S. being involved in Middle Eastern wars. We shouldn't be funding Israel. Israel should take care of themselves. And I'll get a message saying, did Netanyahu pay you to say that? And I'm like, what?
I get messages like that. Because you met with Netanyahu, it's like, oh, what did Tim tell you? You're not allowed to say this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're nuts.
Can't make a distinction between nuance. So I post an Israeli flag as a troll. They put me in the pro-Israel camp because they can't understand that I'm screwing with them. And now anytime I say anything critical of Israel, I get blasted by both pro and anti-Israel every time because they're bot campaigns. So here's what happens. There have been people that have been affected by this. There's a person who's like a fitness instructor, and their YouTube channel is a bunch of fitness videos. Not very big. Mm-hmm. Here's how we do push-ups, whatever, I don't know. One day, October 7th happens, and they make a video saying, I've been getting a lot of messages from people asking me what my thoughts are on what's going on in Israel. And to be honest, I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I know that's deeply affected a lot of you. And I know I have a lot of fans that are deeply concerned about this. So I thought I'd make a video addressing it. They go from getting 10,000 views to 50,000.
And so then they just talk about it all the time.
They come back to their channel and they go, whoa, I got 50,000 views for talking about Israel. Then they look at the comments. The comments say, this is a really great video. You're amazing. Can you make more? They do. Then he makes a video where he's like, I don't really know if it's a genocide or what you'd call it, but I know that it's deeply passionate. Then the comments are all saying genocide, 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 genocide. So then he makes a video saying, I think it might be a genocide. And then all of a sudden he gets 1 million views. Right. So not that every single time this happens, it's bots. But my point is there are PSYOP campaigns that do this. There are a lot of people that are critical of Israel. I've met them. They exist. But Israel isn't doing anything to counter any of it. Any of it. So my prediction is 10 years from now, the 49-year-olds are gonna be 59 and they'll be out of that demo. 8-year-olds now are growing up with young women getting pulled over by cops and saying, did you know there's a genocide in Palestine? It is the branding. Listen, I don't care what she says. What if the cop pulled her over and rolled the window and she was like, if you need a cash settlement and you want to get paid, or whatever that song is. If you have a structured settlement, you need cash now.
Or
I'd be like
1877 cards for kids.
Right. I'd be like, that's branding. The fact that this drunk lady, allegedly, can just blurt it out means she doesn't know anything about anything, but in her brain, that's something she's memorized. So what happens when a kid grows up watching TikTok and Instagram shorts and YouTube shorts, and that's all they see, and Israel does nothing in terms of any kind of PR? Okay, 10 years from now, that 53 minus 53 will be minus 60, and that's when Congress says we vote to defund Israel.
But I think, okay, first of all, I think that there is a kind of like the current thing aspect to it, like the left does tend to move from one thing to the next.
Agreed.
It just happens to be that this is a global thing and the war is still ongoing for reasons we can talk about, none of them good. So it is a thing that has, legitimate criticism attached to it that is global and happened to have been the current thing. And also I think Israel's making a lot of friends in the Middle East. It's becoming much less dependent on U.S. largesse. We're going to end up at a situation, possibly, I don't think so, I think these numbers will improve for Israel, but we're going to end up in a situation where the U.S., for its own strategic purposes, wants to be giving that money more than Israel wants to be taking it because it has local friends, possibly Saudi Arabia, currently the UAE, et cetera, who are more than happy to enter into that kind of relationship and have that kind of intelligence sharing, et cetera. So I don't look at this as a pro-Israel person and feel like terror. I feel like, I have a lot of trust in the American people, the moral intuitions of the American people, the greatest people on planet Earth, and they will arrive at the right situation. But I don't think that this is the current geopolitical situation that Israel is in is significant. It's not.
Perception is reality. And right now on social media, if name a prominent conservative with a big following that's grown substantially, that is pro-Israel, that is advocating for strikes on Iran in favor of Israel. I mean, literally, the inverse of what we see with prominent conservatives who have massive followings and get 12 million views.
But didn't we just see over the last 2 weeks that their influence is like null and void? Like it doesn't matter how many Twitter polls they put up and win. Like actually, the American people supported what President Trump did. And
well, I mean, the poll,
the real polls show that what he did was wildly popular. So
what polls?
Well, 76% of GOP voters approved of it. 65%.
That same poll you just cited says the overall American public it's -11.
But 80% of Americans oppose Iran getting a nuclear deal. So,
but they don't support military strikes.
They don't support Trump. They don't support anything he does. But 80%.
The average person. Trump's approval rating is actually really good right now.
Yeah, but the average Democrat who's part of this 80% who wants Iran not to have a nuclear weapon is going to oppose whatever Trump does to make their wishes come true because they're going to oppose whatever Trump does, period.
Well, not just that, but the disapproval that Trump has in the GOP for the strikes in Iran is slightly higher than his general disapproval in the party, suggesting more Republicans.
Didn't we just see that the influencers have no influence? Like all of these anti-Israel influencers were not able to influence like Trump's actions, or
maybe they did. That's why we didn't invade.
Oh, come on. You don't think that.
Like, what do you mean? Trump met with Steve Bannon. Why did Trump meet with Steve Bannon?
They had so the Trump administration, unlike Israel, handled their PR really well. Like they were reaching out to influencers to be like, we hear you. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't that suggest that they
weren't actually listening to them?
That was a delayed lunch. Like Bannon had a previous.
Trump would never have done regime change. It's like against everything he believes in.
I think that if the entirety of his base was screaming for regime change, he'd do it.
No. Troops on the ground. He was calling people in 2005.
I think regime change and troops on the ground.
He was pissed
there's
about
a
the warning.
It doesn't have to be.
Let me rephrase that. I think if the entirety of Trump's base said we want escalation, we want more action, Trump would have said, okay.
He would have thought about it, but he should have. I mean, that's how democracy is supposed to work, right? The fact is the majority of his base didn't want it, despite the fact that all of the influencers were pushing Trump not to get involved, not to drop these bombs, not to assist Israel, but they were irrelevant in this story. Isn't that not what we just saw? Like the irrelevance of the...
I think the influencers had influence. I think the reason Trump's frustrated and wants a ceasefire and he wants limited interaction is because he knows that he's got these intelligence reports saying, do it or you have to, but then he's got his base screaming, we don't want this, and he's stuck between them.
I don't think that's...
Their influencers are in a bit of a bubble. Although we like to say mainstream media it's completely lost their influence. I think Fox News probably has more viewers than Twitter does have active followers on certain times. Twitter is just completely filled with foreign influence campaigns, and it seems as though a lot of people who had a lot of different jobs have all of a sudden become Middle Eastern experts. I know people who used to be comedians who had not many people show up to their shows seem to get millions of impressions right now on Twitter as a result of this, as a result of their commentary on stuff they actually know next to nothing about. I do agree with you, though, that Israel in the future, they're losing support from Democrats, but that's the reason why I think it's going to become a partisan issue. And I think one of the biggest threats to Israel is one of the biggest threats to America as well. And what is that? It's socialism and socialists in our country. So I think the support for Israel drops when socialism becomes popular in our country. So Israel and really America do have the same biggest threat.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.